Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. This is video number 5 in my series of Maya for Beginners tutorials. And today I'm very excited because finally I'm going to talk about one of my favorite tools in Maya, the curves. I'm only going to cover curves. For my next video, I'll show you how create different surfaces based on all the knowledge we'll learn today about curves. So let's start. Okay, so let's create our first curve. To create any curve, you need to go to main menu to create menu, and you see here I said curve tools. Let's just separate this menu so we have access to it. There's different types of curves in Maya that you can use. So let's talk about first 3 types of curve. You see there is CV curve tool, EP curve tool, and Bezier curve tool. Before I'll try to explain you what difference between them, let's just open settings for our first CV curve tool and reset tool, and let's just create our first curve and look what components it has. So to create a curve, I just use left mouse button and place control vertices, and then I click enter to complete my curve. And you can see that in outliner I have curve 1 created. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just display all the components that curve has, but you don't need to do it when you work with curve. It's just easier for me to show you what I mean when I'm talking about different components of the curve. So I'll go to display, NURBS, CVs, display NURBS, edit points, display NURBS halves. Okay, so I can select them while I'm still in object mode. So if I click right mouse button, you see object mode. So I'm currently in object mode, but I can see them because I just displayed them for a viewport. Let's look closer at our curve. You see there is points that are placed outside of our curve, and they call CV, which is control vertex. You'll also notice that next to every CV or control vertex, you have little crosses here. Those are edit points. Edit points were introduced later in Maya, so they make it a little bit easier to move your curve. So let me switch from object mode to edit mode and show you what I mean. If I go to control vertex, I can select any vertex and I can move it around and change the shape of my curve. But if I need to snap a curve to, for example, center of my grid, I will click and hold right mouse button and I will go to edit points. So now when I select edit points, I can also move it around. For example, if I want to snap it to grid, I'll select the middle. I'll hold X, then I'll hold middle mouse button. I can snap it easily. If I'm going to use control vertex, it will be almost impossible to place it exactly where I want it to be. And now if you look at curve tool again, you will notice that those names comes from parts of the curve. So basically CV curve tool, it's a tool that creates curve based on CVs. Let's delete this one. Let's do it again. I select CV curve tool, and every time I click, I actually create one of the control vertices because they are not placed on my curve. So I click enter. This is the way I created my first curve. It was CV curve tool. And now if I click edit point curve tool, AP curve tool, now notice what happens when I create a curve. I basically create it with the help of edit points, because every time I click, I create edit point both curves will still have the same settings. So if I go with the right mouse button, I can click control vertex, and you see the curve that I created with edit points still have the same control vertices I can move around, as well as edit points. And the curve I created with CV Curve tool also will have edit points and will have control vertex. CV Curve tool and EP Curve tool, it's just two different ways to create the same curve. And now let's figure out how we can have sharp corners on our curve. For example, what happens if I select 3 different CVs and scale them all toward each other? You see, basically created a sharp corner for my curve. This is something that Maya already have as a setting, and it's called multiple knots. For example, if I select the CV and I go curves, CV hardness, you see, I literally did the same. And now, if I check my control vertex, I'll see this vertex. Although this is a CV curve tool, it actually placed on curve because technically to achieve that, Maya placed multiple CVs in the same place, which means it will always be placed on the curve together, and it will match your edit point. So your edit point will be here, and control vertex also will be at exactly the same spot. The first CV we have, as I told you before, it's a multiple knot type of CV that actually placed on the curve because it's much easier to snap your curve when you need to snap it to the grid, for example, or to another object. And you see there is little square icon inside it. And the next one, it's like a letter U. And the reason those two are different from the rest, because Maya show you where your curve starts and where your curve ends. And a next one with letter U show you direction. Although when you look at this particular curve, it's very obvious that if it starts here, then it will end here. Sometimes when you have periodic curve, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, you see this little square here. Basically it shows that this is where your curve starts, and the next one U shows that this curve goes that direction. So if you do any animation, you know exactly where your object is going to follow. Let's go back to other components of our curve. So we already know control vertex and edit points. Next one is hull. For curves, hull doesn't do anything. You can only select it and just move your curve around. Hulls are very useful when you work with NURBS because this is where you can actually adjust your geometry, but it exists on curves as well. It's just straight lines between all the control vertices. So yeah, on the curves it doesn't actually do much. And just like CVs have hulls between them, there is something you should remember. It's that the distance between different edit points called spans. So this will be the first span, then there will be the second span, and so on. This is something that will be very useful when I'm going to talk more about the different curve settings that you need to be aware of. And the last option we can choose from our marking menu, it's curve point. Curve point, it's just like a marker. You see, I can place it anywhere on a point, or with shift I can place a multiple curve points. And what you can do with them, if you click shift and right mouse button, you'll see two options. You can insert node or detach curve. If you don't do any of them, they will disappear when you switch back to object mode. Like now I'm on object mode. There's my control vertices and edit points, they gone. So they don't exist. They literally like little markers that will highlight you where you can put a node or where you can detach your curve. So let's do that. So let's do it again. Let's go to curve point, place, for example, one here and one here. Click right shift and right mouse button and say insert node. Now go to control vertex, and you see we have this extra control vertices that now we can adjust. So let's do it again. Choose curve point, place here, shift right mouse button, detach curve. And now we'll go to object mode. I'll select this side of the curve and this side of the curve. So now we have two different curves. And now let's go back and delete everything and start creating our curve again. So I'll choose the same CV curve tool. And something you need to notice that when you create curve, even if you look like that, you will always snap it to the grid. When you want to go different direction, one of the way to do it, you can switch to a different view. For example, I can look at side view and start creating grid from the side view. And now everything will be snapped to that side view. So if I go back, you'll see the first half of the curve snapped to that perspective view, to the grid, and the second half of the curves snap to side view. While you are still creating your curve, and if you click backspace, you will delete the last CV on your curve. If you click and hold middle mouse button, you can move the last created CVs on your curve. Also, you get access to these manipulators. You can move it like that, or you can even like snap it back to the grid. When you click enter, you complete your curve. And for example, if you want to have a straight lines, you can click and hold shift, and it will keep your lines vertical or horizontal, depends on what direction you are placing them, as you can see. Click enter. And if you want to continue creating your curve after you already created it with CV or AP curve tool, you just select your curve and go curves and choose add points tool. The last point you created will be highlighted, so you can keep creating your curve. And now I click enter, and now I have much longer curve. You can also reverse direction of your curve. So for example, curves, reverse direction. And now if I go curve and choose add points tool, you see I'll have a different end of the curve highlighted, because now this is where curve starts and this is where it's going. So this one would be where I will continue building my curve. Click enter. If you look at attribute editor, you have 3 different types of curve. It's open, closed, or periodic. Let me show you a slightly better example. So you see there is 3 different curves. I'll select the first one and it says open. I'll select the next one, it says closed, and I'll select this one and it says periodic. While you probably already noticed the difference between open and closed curve, open doesn't intersect with itself, and the closed curve, control vertex. So this is, if I move this control vertex, it's actually have a hole, you see? And if you notice, it changed from closed to open when I moved it. To be honest, Maya doesn't always update it accordingly. Very often when you see your curve is open here, it's actually closed, and vice versa, and I don't know why it happens, but anyway, it's important to understand what open and closed curve means. I'll go back. So while closed curve, and like you see now I got it back, but they are still saying this is open curve and this is not true. This is actually closed curve and this is periodic curve. Although they look exactly the same, but if I choose, if I select the first control vertex in a periodic curve, You see, curves stitched together, I can't really separate it. While on a closed curve, I can move that the first vertex and open my curve. So if you select curve in object mode and click shift and right mouse button, you see there is option say open close curve. So if we go to settings, let's just raise the settings and click apply. So it closes the curve and also make it periodic. There's few settings. I'll go back, and if I click shape ignore, click apply. So when you click ignore, you will try to close your curve without adjusting the shape. If you click preserve, you will make your curve smoother. And also blend, I don't think it will work because it doesn't have enough. Yes, it won't work because it doesn't have enough spans. Let's go like that. Okay, so let's select this curve and just keep everything as default and click apply. You see it blended my curve and created that shape. We can play with blend bias a little bit. It's basically how much of curve is going to be changed. So if I put 0 and I click apply, it looks like it kept it more to the original shape. If I select 1 and click apply, yeah, it will blend it a little bit more. Also, you can insert node, which is very useful. And if you want to preserve your shape a little bit better with blend option, so let's click apply. Yeah, you see it didn't actually change as much. It just nicely blended both sides together. Also, you'll see there is option say keep original. If you want to keep original curve, you can keep it on, like for example apply, and it will preserve and save your original curve and will create a new curve. Okay, so now let's look at other settings that you need to know when you use CV Curve tool or EP Curve tool to create curves. So as you can see, they are almost the same. So I'm going to talk only about CV Curve tool, trying to keep this video maybe a little bit shorter. So if you click here, you will see settings. Something to remember, you can always reset your tool to get back default settings. Maya has different curve degrees. Basically shows like the minimum amount of points or vertices you need to create to actually create a curve. Let me show you. For example, if I choose 7 and I create only 4 vertices and click enter, technically I created something that looks like curve, but I don't actually see my curve yet. So let's do it again. The same CV Curve tool, the same 7 degree, and I click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now 8, because the first one, it's not number 1, it's 0, so you need 8 to create a 7 degree curve. And now you see we actually have our curve. So I click enter. I can move the shape, so it looks pretty much like our regular curve. Let's delete this and go back to our settings. So you probably wonder why there are so many different degrees. So 1 linear, 3 cubic and 3 Bezier, those 3 you will probably end up using all the time, and you will never and normally you will never need to use any other curve degrees. And the reason you have them is because sometimes when you import curves from other software to Maya, this is how Maya can import those curves as just native curves to the software, and you can do pretty much the same actions with them as with any other software. So let's look at first linear and 3 cubic. For Bezier, I'll show you a Bezier Curve tool a little bit later. Linear curve degree create curve that has only sharp corners like that. I can click enter, and 3 cubic curve degree will create nice and smooth curve. As I showed you before, you can You can choose a control vertex on your smooth curve and go into curves, CV hardness, and create sharp corners on your curve with multiple nodes. But this is where Bezier Curve gets very handy, because it is much easier to use to create exact shape you want. Let me quickly show you something. For example, I want to create curve that will have some sharp corners and some smooth parts. So I choose one linear curve. I create, for example, something like that. Yeah, let's say it's going to be a little crown or something. And then I click enter. And then I go back and I select 3 cubic. And now I'm going to, I'll start here. I'll go there. I'm going to create, I don't know, some smooth shape and click enter. You notice I created it so both curves are intersecting each other, like here and here. And now I select both of them. And again, this is something I'm going to explain better a little bit later in this video, but I want to show you why you can only use this 3 cubic and 1 liner and basically create any shape that you need. So I'll select these 2 curves. I'll go curve, cut. I'll delete these little bits. So I'll select them again. I'll go curve, attach. I will select with shift. If I click and hold shift, and I'll just invert selection, because after attaching, my always has different bits of the curve, so I will delete them. And now I have one periodic curve that has a smooth area and a sharp area, and all my control vertices are here. This was just a very quick preview how you can just use these 2 types of curve degree. It's enough to create any custom shape, and we'll also do more exercises at the end of this video. The next setting I feel like I need to briefly explain. It's knot spacing. Basically, you have 2 types of knot spacing. It's uniform and chord length. And the reason you need to know that those 2 exist is because often you might have different type of errors. By the way, if you don't remember, this is the area where you can see errors. When you try to do something and it doesn't work as it's supposed to, you always should look in this little window. Something you want to do with curve might give you error and say, this is around knot spacing, you can only use uniform, or you can only use chord length, or you have 2 curves that have different knot spacing and you need to rebuild one curve so they would be the same. And let me quickly explain you what this actually means. So let's do that. Let's create one curve with uniform knot spacing, just like that. Click enter. And now go back and choose chord length. Okay. Click enter. And so we have 2 curves that look the same. So I select this curve and I will look in attribute editor in their shape node. And you see it has 3 spans. Its open curve is the 3rd degree. And minimum maximum value is basically the length of the curve. It starts on 0 and it ends at 3. And as you remember, if I check edit point, so this is one edit point, another edit point. So this is going to be span number 1, span number 2, and span number 3. Now, see what happens. I go back to object mode and I select another curve and look here. So it has the same number of spans, but minimum maximum value, which is the length of the curve, it started from 0 and it ended in 9.2. So when you use uniform knot spacing, Maya would look at your curve based on amount of spans, and this will define any position along the curve. For example, again, let's select this curve. I go create, measure tool, parameter tool to measure the distance in our curve. So you see U0, then I move it, now it's U1. So every point on a curve could be measured, and the distance would be based on the amount of spans, which is the maximum amount of spans on this curve is 3. And when you use chord length curve, which is our second curve, let's select this one, and let's do again. Let's do the same. We go create measurement tool, parameter tool, and now you see it's also started at U0. And then very quickly it's going much higher numbers than the other curve, because in this case may I just look at lengths of the curve and using some other algorithm to show exact coordinates for any like point of your curve. You don't really need to like remember or understand it very well. I don't think I understand it very well, because you just need to remember that uniform, it's length of curve based on amount of spans. And if, for example, you need to rebuild your curve like this one, I'll select my curve, I go to curve and rebuild and check options. I will cover this again later this video after I look through Bezier Curve tool. But what is tricky, you see here it says parameter range. This is your knot spacing, and when it says 0 to amount of spans, this means uniform, and 0 to 1 it will be a chord length. So, and when you choose skip, it will just keep the same knot spacing on your curve when you try to build it with different settings, for example, like add more CVs or something like that. So this is why it's important, because here it's not very obvious that this is uniform knot spacing. If I select this curve, I'll go 0 to spans, and we'll keep uniform, we'll keep CVs, 3 cubic, and click apply and close. You see, and even my marker moved, because now this curve changed its knot spacing, and now it's in uniform knot spacing. When you have this maximum value, it's exact amount of spans you have. Okay, the last settings in CV Curve tool, it's multiple end knots. I suggest just keep it on all the time. What it does, if I switch it off and I create new curve and click enter, and go check control vertices, and you see there's the first and the last control vertices, they won't be placed on actual curve, and it's not very easy to manipulate your curve. So I suggest just don't switch it off, because I don't think there is any reason to keep your end knots separate from the curve. So let's delete that curve, and finally let's talk about Bezier Curve tool and check settings first. There's only a few settings in Bezier Curve tool. It has quite a few hotkeys that are very useful. If you ever used Bezier curves in software such as Illustrator or Photoshop, it works very similar in Maya. So to start creating your curve, you just place points with left mouse button, just like that, and you get sharp corners. If I click and drag left mouse button, I will see handles, and it will allow me to create smooth curve. So I can create a bit of my curve could be smooth, and then if I just click and release left mouse button, I get these sharp corners again, and I click enter to complete the curve. If I want to continue building the same curve I currently have here, I need to select Bezier Curve tool again. It also highlighted me where my curve starts, which is here. So if I want to continue building the curve, all I need to do is click middle mouse button, like that, and I get handles for my last created point of the curve. If I continue building curve, it will add this new part I'm creating to my current curve, and I click enter as I finish it. If I want to move the last point of my curve while I'm still building it, I can do that too. I can build my curve, and then if I click middle mouse button, I get this handle, so I can move move the last point, just like that. If I want to delete last point, I can click backspace and it will delete it. Let's select this curve and see what we have here. We have control vertex, curve point, object mode and hull. Basically the same what we have in CV curve tool. If you choose control vertex mode, you see the vertices that has smoothness also has handles. So if you want to move them, you can just select and use regular move scale and rotate tools, just like that. But if you select Bezier Curve tool again, you'll have more options because you will be able to change the handles and adjust your curve again better. If I click and drag the vertex, I can move it. If I hold Control, click once, you will create sharp corner. If I click and hold, I get handles back. If I click and hold Shift and right mouse button, I can change the vertex type. It could be Bezier, it could be corner, which is like a sharp corner, and Bezier corner, when you can move handles separately from each other. Let's try that. So now I can have one side of that curve smooth and another side can be quite sharp. If I want to add point, again, all I need to do, I'm still using Bezier Curve tool. So this is my my current tool that I have in my hands, and I can just click and I have a new point just straight away. If I want to delete point, I can select it and I can delete it. If I want to constrain like tangent angle, I will hold Shift. And you see, it only allows me to move it toward one direction. And if you want to close your Bezier curve, hold Control Shift and with left mouse button, click on the first vertex of your curve. If you need to detach part of your curve, you just need to choose curve point and place it where you want to cut your curve, then Shift right mouse button and detach curve. So now if I go to object mode, go over center pivot, and so I have that curve. By the way, I'm using a custom hotkey for central pivot, and if you go modify center pivot, and that's it. That's all you need to know for Bezier Curve tool. Okay, let's very quickly look through the rest, and I'll delete all of that. Pencil curve tool. You can draw curves just with your mouse, just like that. I never actually use it. The reason because it creates a lot more control vertices that you don't need. If it's easier for you to create curves, then feel free to use it. And you can always reduce amount of points and make your curve smoother. This is something I'll show you a little bit later. And there's also two useful curve tools in Maya that allow you to create arcs. Let's start with a 3-point arc, reset tool. So you need to create 3 points and Maya will build a smooth circular arc around them. And you can also use these points to change your arc, just like that. In the settings, you can select amount of sections you want. If I go back to object mode and check control vertex, then this is the amount of sections your arc has. And let's delete that. And the last one is 2-point circular arc. So it's basically the same, only you only need to create 2 points. And there's also this little handle that helps you to change the size of your arc or the shape. And it has exactly the same settings like 3 points arc. So yeah, I don't think there is anything else I can add to it. It's a useful tool when you want to create nice and smooth arc. Okay, so now let's have a look how we can convert different curves. If I choose Bezier Curve tool and I create click enter. And now if I need to convert it to CV curve, I go to modify, convert, Bezier curve to NURBS. I click that and let's check. Yeah, if I highlight any control vertices, I don't have handles anymore. So now this is a standard NURBS CV curve. And let's move it away. And let's create CV curve tool now. Something like that. I don't know. Let's click enter. And I go modify, convert, NURBS curve to Bezier. Now if I go check control vertices, I see the handles, and now I actually have what I have here. It's an actual Bezier curve tool. So I can choose a Bezier curve tool, and I can adjust. I can change the radius. Okay, so now let's have a look how we can rebuild curves. First of all, you can only rebuild NURBS curves, so you will need to convert Bezier curves to be able to rebuild them. Then we select curve, go curves, rebuild, and open settings. So there is different rebuild types you can choose. The most useful is a uniform because it gives you a lot of settings that you can use. Reduce type is supposed to reduce CVs on your curves, but it doesn't always work in a predictable way. For example, if I choose global and I select my curve and I click apply, it doesn't actually do much. But if I switch to local and I use high tolerance and I click apply, you see it reduces a few vertices. But again, I prefer to use uniform and just select the number of spans I need. I'll undo that. Match nodes. This one could be useful. It can rebuild your curve and change amount of CVs based on another curve's CVs. I'll show it to you at the end. Curvature. Maya will decide how many points it will use. If on the areas that is more curvy on your curve, curvy areas on your curve, it will keep more points, and on this flatter areas, it will reduce points. So let's try that. Yeah, it actually reduced quite a lot more points than I thought. And again, you can use global and local tolerance. So let's undo that and try global. You see, in the global tolerance, it's actually added points and made it slightly smoother. No multiple nodes and end conditions. No multiple nodes will remove sharp corners from your curve. I never actually use it. And the same with end conditions, when you can choose no multiple nodes or multiple nodes. I don't really use all of the settings, and I think the most useful is uniform and match nodes. So let's talk about uniform. And we already looked at parameter range. You can keep your parameter range, or you can change it whether the length of your curve will be defined by a number of spans or will be just a range between 0 and 1. The next setting is keep. So it allows you to choose what you want to keep when you're rebuilding your curve. For example, I want to keep ends, which means that the first and the last vertex should keep the same position. Tangents means that Maya will try to keep curvature as close as it could. If I select CVs, everything else will gray out, because if I want to keep all the CVs, then Maya won't change my curves that much. I can only change parameter range or degree. Let's maybe try that. I will keep the same amount of CVs, but change degree to 1 linear and click apply. And now all these vertices are sharp corners. So if I move any of them, they all became 1 linear degree curve from 3 cubic to 1 linear degree. Go back to object mode. Let's do it again, and let's go back to cubic, but this time I don't want to keep my CVs. I'll have ends. I don't want to keep tangents, and here I can specify the number of spans I want to use. For example, I can see that this is quite a lot and I want to reduce it. Let's try 12 and keep apply. And now may I rebuild my curve with this amount of spans and with degree that I selected here. Also, you can keep original. I'll undo that. Let's do it again, and I'll select keep the original and click apply. And now we will have, we'll have two curves. I'll just display series so we can see it better. This is the original curve and this is the new curve. And you can also keep number of spans, in which case number of spans setting will gray out. And again you can just switch between cubic and linear type of curve. Just click apply. And now the curve has exactly the same amount of CVs and spans, but we changed the degree and it's linear. And let's have a look at match nodes now. I have 4 different curves here and I want to create shape between them. And if I check control vertices, I'll see that here I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one has 9 vertices and this one only have 4. And I might want to have more vertices on this curve so I can control my shape a little bit better, in which case I need to rebuild it, and I want to use this curve as a base. I select match nodes. I'll keep the same parameter. I'll keep ends. I don't want to keep original. So I want to rebuild this curve based on this curve and click apply. And let's check. Control vertices. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I have 9 control vertices. So for example, I'll go to surface, and by the way, surfaces, this is something I'm going to cover in my next video. I'll go Bezier, I think it's a Bezier 2 tool. So I select 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have that shape. And now because I still have history, and I can select that curve, go to control vertex, and now it will be much easier for me to control my shape, just like that. Because the amount of CVs I have here perfectly matches the amount of CVs I have on the other side. It's just one of the examples where it could be useful when you have a curve and you need to match the amount of CVs from another curve, and you can do that. Okay, now we already know how to create curves, how we can convert different types of curves, and how we can rebuild our curves. Let's have a look how we can combine different curves to get more interesting custom shape. Let's try to do something very simple first. I want to create a little moon. The easiest way to do it is to combine 2 circles. I'm going to create NURBS circle shape. By the way, if you want to create NURBS shapes, you can go create NURBS primitives, and here you can see circle and square that you can use and combine with different curves. So let's select it. I will duplicate it with Shift D. I'll move it somewhere here. Okay, so now I have these 2 curves together. What I can do, I can go to curves. By the way, let's also separate this menu so we have it all nice and handy. I can choose cut here. Let's have a look at the settings. If you use default settings, you need to be sure that your curves intersect with each other. In my case, when I duplicated the curve, I only moved it within X and Z axes. That's why I'm sure those two are intersect with each other. Okay, so let's give it a go. I will select both of them and click cut. And now, as you can see, in Outliner, I have 4 different curves. I can delete curves that I don't need, so I just have that shape that I need. Let's just undo that and see what other settings you can use. If you have the curves that doesn't intersect with each other, for example, I'll lift it a little bit, you still can cut them based on one of the direction. You can change find intersection settings to use direction, and you can choose the axis orientations that will project your curve on another curve and then cut it through it. For example, if I choose Y, Maya will basically look at the top Y axis and cut my curves everywhere where they intersect from the top view only. So let's go back to perspective and let's give it a go. Select these 2 circles, use direction Y and click cut. And now you can see we have almost exactly the same result, so we can delete those 2, except of obviously we don't have edges of the curves connect to each other, and we can fix that. And let's do that. I can move one edge here and select this one too and snap the curve. I can move it here. To show you a quick example, I can create loft between those 2. I can go surface, loft. And we see black faces because we have reverse normals, and this is something I'll be covering later in this series. But right now, all you need to do is just go lighting and choose 2-sided lighting to preview your geometry like that. Okay, let's move it somewhere else and do another example. Maybe now I want also to make something can, now we have moon. Let's make, so now when we have the moon, let's maybe make the sun. So let's start with the circle. I'll create that. I will create one spike. So let's choose CV Curve tool and settings. I need linear. With snap into the grid, I'll create just something like that. Click enter. I'll change the size of it and make it slightly longer maybe. Yeah, something like that. And now what I can do, I can move pivot in the center and use duplicate spatial to create even amount of spikes around my circle. So let's do that. I will hold D and hold X, and with middle mouse button I'll move pivot to the center of the grid. And now if I go edit, duplicate spatial, check settings, and just reset settings. So let's say I want to have 15 copies because I already have 1, and I want to have 16 spikes in total, so I'll use 15 here. And I'll use rotate on y-axis for 22 and 5 degree. And my geometry type will be copy, not instance. So I click apply. That looks good. I'll close it. The only thing I want to do is maybe make the circle a little bit larger. So maybe something like that. I will also duplicate it. So we'll have the inner circles. So now I want to remove all the little bits that I don't need. And the easiest way to do that is to select everything. Then I will deselect the circle because it will be easier for me to remove that little parts of my spikes without it. I'll go curves, and now I can go to check cut settings again. Let's go back to 2D and 2D view. We can quickly look at other settings, although you don't really need to change much as long as you make sure your curves within the same axis, or if they're not, then you can just specify the axis that you want. You can also do it from active view, which will just use your camera view, or free when you can specify the exact direction. Again, let's keep it simple. You can also cut all the intersections or using the last selected curve. For example, if my last selected curve is this one, then this curve will cut all other curves that is selected. So let's check that. Let's first do with all the intersection and click apply. Now you see we have this little, we got cut across all the parts that intersect with each other. Let's undo that. And now if we select using the last curve and click apply, yeah, you see now it's much easier for me to remove these little parts because the only area that get cut was along that curve. So in my case, using last curve actually worked better because I have all these little parts that will be easier for me to remove. Let's undo that. We can also keep longer segments instead of all curve segments. Let's try that. Let's keep the same using last curve and longer segment settings and click apply. And you see it just did exactly what I wanted. If I select this curve again and I see if I can cut these little gaps between, in which case I'll use all the intersections, and let's keep all curve segments and try that. Yeah, looks like it did that perfectly. And now I can select all of these little bits and delete them. And as you can see, if I select all of it, there will be like lots of different curves. And let's have a look how we can attach all these curves to create just one shape out of this. So apparently my Maya has just crashed and had to redo this shape. Anyway, I have noticed something and I want to talk about it a little bit. Remember when we built the stand, we used duplicate special and we used copy geometry type, and see what happens if you would use instance geometry type. So here is my example. So I used instance geometry type, and now as you can see, all these little parts are connected to each other. I can move them around and the same will happen to all of them, which could be quite handy. But the reason I want to show you is because if you will try cut these curves, for example, I'll go curves, I'll click cut. You get some error and it won't work. And usually if something doesn't work, you try to delete your history. You try freeze transformation. And even now you see me gives you an error that it can apply freeze transformation to the shape. So to fix that, all you need to do, you need to convert your instance type of geometry to regular curves. If you select all your pikes and go modify, convert instance to object. So it will work with any type of geometry like polygonal modeling or NURBS. So I click instance to object. And now all of them are regular curves that doesn't connect to each other. Let's select. Let's go back to object mode. Select all of them. And yeah, this is another error you might have. It might happen because you still have history or your transformation connected to some other nodes. So the easiest way to fix it, as I showed you before, would be clear the history and freeze transformation. And now if I move it, it's all work. So let's just check that now we can cut all of this. We go curves, cut, and yeah, now as you can see, everything perfectly cut. It's just something to be aware of. Very often you will have some errors later on, so before doing anything else, you might want to convert them to regular objects. And now let's look how we can attach all the curves. I will duplicate. So I just group them. I'll duplicate the group and I will hide it. So we just have a spare example if we need to check other settings. I'll go curves, and there is a a command called attach. Let's open settings, reset settings. Okay, so what it does, it just attach all your curves. When curves align perfectly together like this one, you can just choose connect as an attach method, and I suggest you keep multiple knots so it won't change the shape of your curve. You don't need originals, although even when you don't have this option on, Maya still might have bits of different curves everywhere in your model after you attach them. I'll show you in a second. And oh, by the way, you need to deselect the middle. This is actually how I crashed my Maya. I selected all of this and the middle part and clicked attached, and yeah, Maya couldn't do that, so it just shut down. So let's deselect that and only have our outer circle. Click attach. We get some error, but doesn't matter. Let's the first curve would be our resulting curve. If I hold shift, I can invert selection and basically delete everything else that is not that curve. I'll do that, and I will also remove that middle part and delete it. So now I have the resulting curve, and as you can see, there was a lot of other bits of curves that you don't need. And the reason you would want to remove them, because you might accidentally have bits of curves behind of your new curve, and then when you try to do something with it, it will give you error. So let me show you on that example that I had. So I'll hide this one. Okay, so let's do it again. I'll select all of this and attach. This is our resulting curve. You see, I selected one curve, but when I try to move it as an object, you start moving in a very strange way, because it's still connected to some of the other curves that you see in Outliner. So when it happens, you just need to select one resulting curve, hold shift, invert everything, delete everything, and you have your curve, and you can continue work with it. In attach curve options, we also have blend, and you use blend when you have two curves that doesn't connect to each other. For example, let's hide this one. Yeah, let's try something like that, just for the sake of experiment. And we select one, we select two. Let's keep the same settings for now, and click apply. So now we have just one curve. It created a very nice smooth blend from one curve to another. And now, if we want to close the curve, we'll go right mouse button and open close curve. Look, settings. And again, you see the same blend options, and you see it has the same blend option, which basically works the same way. So if you click apply, it will blend it nicely and it will close it. I have just built our moon again, and wanted to show you something else that can happen when you try to attach to curves. So I have this curve, and in this curve I select them, I'll go curves, attach, open settings, I'll reset tool, and I will choose connect as an option, and well, I don't need originals. No, I actually will keep originals. See what happens. I click apply, and it didn't do what I expected. It moved one edge of the curve somewhere else. And the reason it did that because one of the curve has opposite direction from another. So this one going there, and this one is going there. Basically, both of these curves start from this point, and when you apply attach, Maya will try to attach end of one curve with start of another curve. And this is very easy to fix. I just will select this part, go to curve, and reverse direction. Click settings. Okay, there is no settings, so just apply. And now we'll select them and go curves, attach. Perfect. Now again, I will shift and select everything behind it. I'll remove it. We can give it a quick test with Bevel Plus and soften harden. I'll just fix the normals that looks wrong. So yeah, you see, we immediately get a very nice result. Let's undo that. Okay, what if I want to have also curve inside inside this shape? Like, I can try to duplicate it, and I'll try to... You see, it's quite hard to get the shape right, so there is another tool in Maya you can use. If you go to curves, let's separate them again. If you go curves, offset, there is two options. One is for curves on surfaces, and this is something that I might show you when I talk about NURBS surfaces. For now, let's just choose offset curve, go settings. I'll just go edit, reset settings, and keep everything like it is, and click apply. This doesn't look anything like what we want to see, but also it's something you can change after you apply offset curve. If you go to attribute editor, like here, you will see you have a new node called offset curve 1. In my opinion, this is much easier way to adjust your curve. So first of all, I'll play with distance and I'll try to move it. And then I notice it cut loops, and this is something that doesn't always work in a predictable way. So if I switch it off, now I can see what actually happened to my shape and where is my offset gone. So I switch cut loop off. I will choose well, there is two options for connect breaks. That doesn't change anything in this example because I only need this middle part. So I can try adjust distance. By the way, do you remember in my previous video I told you that one of the way to be more precise with the slider, like right now if I move the slider a little bit, it gives me a very large step. If I hold command and click and hold a left mouse button here and move it up and down, I can adjust numbers in a much slower speed, so I can actually get it much closer to what I want. So I would say something like that. That looks good. I will close it. So offset is useful, but as you can see, you need to play around with settings to in attribute editor after you do it. And now when I delete history, I will delete this node and it will become just a regular curve. I'll place a curve point here, then I'll click shift right mouse button and say detach curve. So now I have two separate curves, and now I can just go curves and cut. And let's see, I'll remove these parts and these parts and select this one, and this one will go curve and attach. And we'll use shift to clean all the extra bits of curves that Maya might have created. Now I have this nice inner part that looks good. Let's select two of them and delete our history just in case, and go surface, Bevel Plus. That looks quite nice. I'll quickly fix normal orientation, which is using soften harden. And yeah, I can even find Bevel Plus node and try to play with settings. And the last command I want to show you, it's align. For example, if you have two curves and you want to connect them or move them together, let's have a look at settings, reset settings. So when you align your curves, the first option is that you can also attach them or keep them as separate curves. In continuity settings, if you use position, it will just move one curve to another. And when it says modify position, you can choose which curve you want to move. So for example, I'll select both of them, I'll select first, click apply. Let's undo that. Second. Let's undo that. Or both. They all will meet each other somewhere in the middle. Click apply. You can also modify boundary of first or second or both curves instead of just moving them. Let's try that. As you can see, Maya just moved the first vertex of your first curve to the last one. It didn't change the shape of your curves, so your curve keeps the same. Second one, it only moves one end of the curve to connect to another curve, or both when they will meet each other somewhere in the middle. The next option is tangent, and again you can do the same. You can modify position of first curve, second curve, or both. Let's do just an example and click apply. May I change position of my first curve to connect it with my second curve, but also it created a smooth transaction from one curve to another using a tangent of both curves. And modify boundary will keep both curves at the same place and will change one curve or another curve. Let's try that. You see, now we have a nice smooth transaction between that curve and that curve. Let's undo that. Again, you can use it for a second curve or for both curves where they will just meet each other somewhere in the middle. And the last one is curvature. Tangent and curvature quite similar, except that curvature has more settings, and you can play around with them and find like the perfect settings to connect your curves, but in most cases you will only use this tangent and position. But let's just do a quick one. Let's try curvature. You see, it's very smooth, so you don't even see that these two curves are connected. And when it was tangent, it left a little bit more of that curvature, so it's something you can play around. Okay, now very quickly let's have a look through other tools and commands that you might find useful. So the first one is lock length. It allows you to move your curve without stretching it. Let me show you. I select the curve, I click lock length, and now if I select this control vertex, I can move my curve like that. Could be really handy. And you can use any control vertex to adjust the shape, but you won't be able to move the first one if you are adjusting the curve from any other point. And when you don't want to have your curve length locked, you could just go to object mode and unlock length. Now everything goes back to normal, so you can just move your curve the usual way. Next one is curl. All it does is just make your curve curly. Makes your curve curly. And here is a few settings you can play around. Next one is smooth. We have that curve and we can smooth it. And if we check settings, we'll see that there is a smooth factor. You can smooth it just a little bit, like that. Or you can put 100 and click apply and we'll just smooth it. And it does not reduce the amount of vertices, it's only changed the shape. Next one is straighten. Let's have a look at settings. Basically does very similar thing. It just literally straighten your curve, so without changing it. And you can make it straight more or less, like for example, if I move it to lower, click apply, you will straighten it a little bit less. And the last one is fillet. For this you need to curve, go into settings, get edit, reset settings. You can create circular fillet or freeform fillet. Basically it's like a shape that can connect two curves together. If I select these two curves and I click circular fillet with default settings, I click apply, may give me an error because some of the settings like radius doesn't work with distance I have between my curves. The easiest way to work it out is to show manipulators, which is hotkey T. Hotkey T used for many other tools, they shows manipulator. Now I can see this little two dots, so I can actually move them around. Now I built this fillet here, and the other place to adjust your fillet after you applied it, it's again attribute editor, where you can play with settings. Also, you can switch it to freeform, and you can have a control over how you would like to bend it. And again, you can use those two dots here just to move it around if you want it to be a little bit larger, something like that. So when it's not circular and when it's freeform, you basically can adjust this radius that move it slightly closer to one curve or to another curve. And you can also adjust whether it's just a straight line or an arc or even like a triangle sort of shape. And when you deselect, this command creates a separate curve. So if you want to combine them all together, then you will need to attach and cut them again. Okay, now let's try to create something more complex and actually see with an example how we can use curve to create some interesting custom shape in 3D. First of all, I will go to my front view and I will create image plane. Like, just click here and I'll open so I found this pattern and I decided I want to try to make a 3D shape based on it. I'm going to change alpha a little bit just to make it more transparent. And I'm also going to change display looking through camera. So I'll only see it in my front view. If I go back to perspective view, so it will be empty. I'll go back to my front view. Also, I don't want to select it, so I'm going to place it on a separate layer. I will select it first and I click here and change layer into reference layer. So now I won't be able to select it. Okay, actually I need to select it to move it a little bit. And I'm going to change it to reference, so I won't be able to select it. I'm going to use Bezier Curve, and first I want to create the overall shape, and then I'm going to create a little details that at the end I will use Boolean to cut them from main shape. So let's give it a go. I'll have my curve tool here, select Bezier Curve tool. Move it a little bit. With middle mouse button, I can move the last point a little bit. Let's click enter. I click Y to select the last use tool. So let's do this line. Oops. I probably could do it just with one curve, but I guess the idea of this exercise is to show that you don't need to use just one curve, because you can create a number of curves and then you can just cut them and attach them and work from there. Okay. I'm not trying to match it perfectly because but when you work on your own reference, you can obviously go as close as you wish. Okay, click enter. And let's adjust a few points. So I'll click Bezier Curve tool again. Can select, just try to make them slightly smoother. Oops. Let me see what I'm selecting. I'm using Bezier corner when I need to select move handle separately and give them slightly different curvature. Okay, let's go with it. And so now I have this curve and this curve. Let's first go curves. And cut. I'll remove that a bit. And oops. And yeah, I'll keep actually I'll place those contour vertices to the grid. So be like that. And this bottom one. Could be like that. Okay, so now let's go to perspective. Now I just need to attach this to curves, and let's check their direction. So this one, yeah, so this one starts here, and this one ends here. So there shouldn't be any issues with attaching them. So select both of them, click and attach. Now I delete history, I freeze transformation, and I go back to front view. Cool, so now I have this part of my curve. I'm going to duplicate it using Shift D. So I'm going to switch to scale, and while holding J, I'm going to scale it backwards, so we'll have a perfect symmetrical part of it, just like that. Now let's have a look at, we can just change visibility of our reference, and let's have a look at their direction. So this is where it starts. This is where it starts, right? So now we need to reverse one of the curve. I select it and I click reverse. So it changed direction. Now select this one and try to attach them. Looks good. Now I'm going to again clean history, freeze transformation, just so we won't have any errors or issues. And now all need to just do exactly the same. I can duplicate this curve. Going to choose scale tool, hold J and move it to the other side. This is where this curve starts, and right, and again we need to reverse one of the curve. So let's look good. Select this one, attach, history and transformation. Okay, so you see very quickly we created quite interesting shape. And let's keep our reference here and go to perspective view. And now what I can do, I can create polygon shape based on that curve from surface. Again, something I'm going to talk more about in next video. So I go surface and I'll try bevel plus. Yeah, looks good. So we have already quite interesting shape, and then this shape, while I keep my history, I can also adjust the shape. If, for example, I choose some contour vertices, use soft selection, I can move them any way I want, or almost anyway, as long as they don't intersect each other, then this is where my bevel is going to be breaking, but you have a bit of flexibility. So now let's try to add our inner parts. Let's go back here and let's maybe hide this one for now. Select my Bezier curve. Okay, so let's do this one. I'll start from actually I'll start from here. Just do exactly the same. I definitely think that Bezier curves are my favorite. Sometimes you can't use them for some surfaces, so you need to rebuild them and make or convert them, but they're just so easy, so much easier to work with, in my opinion. Okay, that looks good. I click enter. I'm going to duplicate it, use our scale tool. With shift I can select another curve, and then right mouse button I can select control vertex. So now I have two curves and I can adjust both control vertices from both curves at the same time. So I'll select these two, and if I hold J it would basically scale to 0. This is what I want. Select those two. So I don't need to move them separately for every curve. So now I go to object mode, control vertex. Okay, this is where I start. This is where I start. So let's shift right mouse button, reverse curve. Okay, yeah. So select this one, attach. History, freeze transformation, and great. So now I can duplicate it, scale, and place it underneath. So now I have this two done. So that looks nice. Let's now, we already have our shape from this one. Actually, let's, I have just deleted the shape. Let's first convert all of them into CVs, because they might, so we don't have errors. We go modify, convert, Bezier curve to NURBS. Okay, that's good. Now I created the base based on that main curve, and now let's add those. Surface bevel plus, surface bevel plus, and let's move them back, so they'll be inside. And where's the pivot? Mesh boolean difference. Ta-da! So yeah, this is our shape, and let's select it. So this is how you can make something like that with help of curves and using different surface and polygon modeling tools that we're going to cover later in this series. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you found this video useful, please give me a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in my next video.